Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of 4-H, Monsters, Myths, and Crafts. I'm Mr. Ted, and this is Argus, the Cyclops. Today is going to be an exciting day as we learn so much more about Greek mythological characters and monsters. But first, let's review what we learned during our first episode. In our first episode, we met our first two Greek mythological characters. The first was Gaia, who represents the earth, and the second was Uranus, who represents the sky. We learned how they met and got married on the side of a mountain on a Greek island. We also learned that their first children were the Cyclopes and the hundred-handed monster. Our craft last episode was the t-shirt that we're making for our Cyclops puppets. And this t-shirt represented Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth, coming together. Today, we're going to learn how to create the head for our Cyclops puppets. Last episode, we also learned about our superpower, empathy. And we learned that empathy is the ability to understand somebody else's thoughts, feelings, and motivations. Today, we have a mission to understand the thoughts, feelings, and motivations of another by taking on their perspective. And perspective is just how somebody else sees the world, based on their own experiences. What do you think, Argus?
Let's get started.
Okay then, let's get started. Let's take a look at all of the supplies that you'll need to complete your Cyclops puppet head. First of all, you'll need a bucket to place the head in. You'll need a bowl about this size for the glue and the water. The glue we're going to be using is just Elmer's glue. And you'll need 2 cups. 1 cup for glue and another cup for water. In addition, you'll need a full newspaper. And you'll need a balloon. The first thing we're going to do is blow up the balloon as a base for our puppet head. That's about right. You don't want the puppet head to be too large because then it will take a very long time to cover with paper mache. Once you have the size you like, just tie a knot at the bottom, and now your balloon is ready. The next step is to create the strips of paper we're going to be using to cover the balloon. Separate the newspaper and start tearing strips about this size. And the strips don't have to be neat, just tear them. And if you get some smaller strips, it's no big deal. You can still use them. The next step is to mix your glue and water together. In this cup, I have 1 cup of Elmer's glue, which I'll pour into the yellow bowl. And in this cup, I have 2 cups of water, which I'll pour right into the bowl. I'll use a popsicle stick to stir the glue and water together. And I want to stir it really good to make sure it mixes completely. You want to get all that glue off of the bottom of the bowl. That looks about right. take a strip of your newspaper one at a time and dip it into the bowl and get it soaking wet. Now, the trick is when you lift the newspaper, you take your two fingers like scissors and you lightly press on both sides of the paper as you pull down to remove the excess water and glue. And from there, you'll place it directly onto the balloon, because if you don't remove that excess water, it's going to drip a lot more and create a huge mess. Then you want to smooth it onto your balloon and keep going. And you can do crisscross, you can go in all different directions with your paper on the balloon. But you're trying to cover the entire balloon. And you can turn your balloon in your bucket and access all sides. I'm going to cover up the entire balloon. And this is our first coat. We're going to do a total of 4 coats of paper to make our Cyclops puppet head very strong, so it doesn't break. Now, when you get down to here, you want to be careful not to cover this part up, because that's where we're going to place the wooden rod once it's dry to hold the head. So you just want to paper mache around this part. We have some empty areas here, and I will just paper mache right over them. Whew! That took a little bit longer than I had expected, but now it's finished. I have 4 layers of newspaper on top of the balloon. So I'm going to let this sit for 24 hours, and in the next episode, I will show you how to put on the nose and the eye on your Cyclops. But for right now, let's all meet in Reading Corner. So grab a copy of your Birth of the Cyclops, and I'll meet you there. Welcome to Reading Corner. Today we're going to read The Birth of the Cyclops, Chapter 1. So if you want to follow along, you can print out a copy of this book directly from our Google site, or you can just sit back and listen. The Birth of the Cyclops. Chapter 1. The Beginning of Time. In the beginning of time, The sky was named Uranus. The earth was named Gaia. Uranus and Gaia got married. They lived on a mountain on a small island. Their first 3 children were called the 100-handed monsters. They were giants, and they each had 50 heads and 100 hands. Gaia then gave birth to 3 Cyclopes. The 3 Cyclopes were giants, and they were strong. They only had 1 eye. Their eyes were at the center of their forehead. The father of the Cyclopes thought his kids were ugly. He gathered them together and sent them to Tartarus, a cave deep below the ground near the center of the earth. The Cyclopes and the 100-handed monsters were sad. And that concludes chapter 1. So what I would like for all of us to do is to visit the link below the video that says Google Sites and visit our reflection questions on Google Jamboard. And there you will see questions that will ask you to take the perspective of each one of these characters to find out how they were feeling, how they were thinking, and what their motivations were. So, for example, why do you think the father, Uranus, decided to send the Cyclopes to Tartarus? How do you think the Cyclopes were feeling when they were living in Tartarus? And why? What do you think Gaia will do now that all of her children are trapped in Tartarus? How do you feel about the Cyclopes? And after you've completed the answers to these questions, what I would encourage you to do is visit the other Jamboard where you'll be asked to write text messages from Cyclops to Uranus, from the Cyclops to Gaia, and from Gaia to the Cyclops, and from Uranus to the Cyclops. And what I would like you to do is write as much as you can about the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions that are being experienced by the characters, and write some text messages between these different mythological monsters and characters, and really try to get inside of their head and in their hearts to determine their perspective and why they're feeling the way they are. I look forward to reading all of your responses, and we'll discuss them when we meet during our next episode, where we're going to be building the eyes and the nose for our Cyclops puppet, and we're also going to be building the body of the puppet. I look forward to seeing you all again.